representing the traditionally GOP-dominated Long Island. He's an outspoken advocate for suburban interests like property tax relief, and that's a big focus for his conference this year. He's also a big advocate of charter schools, which has put him at odds with some fellow Democrats. And he's a perennial target for the Republicans since he won a special election in 2007, and this year is no different. Tonight, he's here to weigh in on charter schools and the budget and how he's gone on a crash diet to prepare for the campaign. Senator Craig Johnson joins us from New York City this evening. How are you doing, Senator?
Good, Liz. How are you?
I am well, thanks. So I understand that today there was a hearing that you participated in down in New York City. Senator Bill Perkins had a hearing on charter schools, and this has made him a target of charter school supporters, and one of those supporters is yourself, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
What did you say when you testified, and how was that hearing? Just give us a little synopsis.
Sure. Look, I participated as a member of the state Senate. Senator Perkins invited all the senators to participate, and I took him up on his offer. I have a great deal of respect for Senator Perkins as a colleague and what he tries to accomplish as a senator. But I have to tell you, I was extremely disappointed in the hearing. I felt that the hearing really was an effort by Senator Perkins to if I can use the word, attack the public charter schools. It was unfortunate. It got very testy. The room was crowded, and I would say the deck was stacked with anti-charter school folks, and that made it a little bit unfortunate. But I was able to press the case for fairness, and the hearing, I don't want to call it a success or a failure, but certainly a lot of information was brought out there. My only problem is a lot of the information was false.
Well, that's actually quite a charge. Now, Senator Perkins isn't here to defend himself, but he is running for re-election. I'm just curious, are you going to support him? Because it is the tradition of the Democratic Conference to support incumbents. And there are some people who are looking for a primary opponent to challenge him. They are that unhappy with him. And not only for his charter school opposition, but also because he's been quite outspoken. He holds David Paterson's old seat. He's been quite outspoken about David Paterson's problems, and he was at one point eyeing a potential challenge to Charlie Rangel.
Well, as you know, I too have been pretty outspoken about the governor. So Senator Perkins and I do share that interest. Look, you know, my efforts in terms of re-election is focusing on myself and what I have to do, ensuring that my constituents get the property tax relief that they so desperately need, working to ensure that we get the $700 million in the Race to the Top funds, something that we missed out on a few months ago. These are the efforts that I'm focusing upon, and I'm focusing upon my race and my race alone. So, you know, whatever Senator Perkins decides to do, I don't know if he's running for Congress or if he's running for the state Senate, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm confident that in my re-election chances I'm going to be successful, and we'll go from there.
Well, actually, speaking of property tax relief, that seems to be a big sticking point in the state budget at this point. Your conference has been quite adamant. Actually, I had the Democratic conference leader in yesterday, and he said pretty much that property tax relief is a line in the sand. And then there was Assemblyman Ron Canestrari came in and said there should be no lines in the sand. Quite clearly, the two sides, the Senate and the Assembly, are very far apart. And then the third player, the governor, is even further apart, saying he's going to veto anything that doesn't have deep spending cuts. Is there going to be a budget? And if so, when and how, most importantly?
Well, first of all, of course there's going to be a budget. Second of all, I'm hopeful that we're going to get a budget accomplished quickly. But at the same time, Liz, we in the Senate Democratic Conference are not prepared to simply sacrifice the interests of suburban residents or New York City residents, Buffalo residents, residents all across the state who are troubled by the growing property taxes that we're seeing in New York State. So I'm very proud of Senator John Sampson, who has really taken up this cause, representing my interests of my good friend Brian Foley and Dave Valesky, Darrell Albertine, Bill Stokowski, Jeff Klein, and others who have made it very clear that property tax relief is our #1 priority in this budget. I'm a little disappointed, quite frankly, in the Assembly. I would expect more from the Assembly. They represent constituents just like we represent constituents, and they have to be hearing from the same constituents that I'm hearing from that say property tax relief, property tax relief, property tax relief. You know, my good friend Tom Suozzi unfortunately lost his re-election efforts just this past November, and the reason was his voters, my voters, were fed up with the property taxes that we're paying in Nassau County.
Well, I'm not
you
so
gotta
sure.
listen.
I'm not so sure that was a reason. Actually, I mean, his campaign was back on its heels for some time. I certainly property taxes was an issue, and I'm not going to debate you on how important an issue it is for people all over the state. The problem is that the longer that you go on without a budget, you're hurting the school districts with these bare bones budgets. There's contractors who are out of work because construction projects aren't going forward. I mean, at some point, don't you have to fish or cut bait and get a deal done and be done with it?
Not at the expense of the property taxpayers whom we represent in New York State. Look, when it comes to the contractors, I agree. We got to pay them, but that's Governor Patterson. You know, quite frankly, the governor has been nowhere to be found. It's really simple, you know, to stand up and make, you know, and pontificate about the budget, but where is he? I haven't seen him in Albany anytime recently, and, you know, my conference is working very hard to try and bridge the gap. You know, we are going to have those deep spending cuts. That's a fact, and it's an unfortunate fact that we're going to have to face. These are very difficult times. Last year, Liz, as you may recall, we actually, cut billions of dollars in spending to close a $17 billion budget gap. This year it's $9 billion. You know, we're prepared to do it. It'd be great to have a partner in the Republican Senate, quite frankly, but they've offered nothing. Okay. No solutions, no issues.
Well, at this point now, I mean, we're getting a little bit down into the partisanship. I just do want to say the governor was in Albany a couple days ago because I know because he had a press conference and he was talking about Earth Day and environmental things, if I'm not mistaken, but perhaps he wasn't with the Senate Democrats discussing budget relief and budget talks, so I'm not going to debate you on that one. But I guess my question here now is, well, let's move on to the partisanship because things are getting awfully partisan in the Senate, and you've got a campaign coming up, and obviously you're preparing. And there was a story today in the New York Times that was kind of amusing regarding, but certainly serious, regarding people's preparations, and that includes your weight, if I'm not mistaken, and some of your colleagues, an unusual number of your colleagues and yourselves are on a diet to prepare for a difficult election season.
Well, I certainly take issue with you saying it's a crash diet. I've been on this diet now since the beginning.
I'm sorry to mischaracterize your weight loss techniques. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The beginning of the year, and it's something that I've had to battle for a little while. And you know, look. And the other problem I have right now is coming into the studios here at New York One, you forced me to go through Chelsea Markets, and right downstairs there are at least 2 ice cream parlors. And as the Times made very clear, that is my big enemy right now, is ice cream. But in all seriousness, look, you know, for me, it's about my health. It's about the fact that as a father of 3, as a husband, I wanted to make sure that I was in the best shape possible for them. It also happens to be an election year, and so, you know, no doubt the story points out or tries to tie that we are all getting in shape for our election efforts. I also think it's just very... I'm sorry?
Do you think that thinner candidates do better on the campaign trail?
I don't know. Governor Christie seemed to do okay.
He's lost weight, too, that Times story says, that he's working on it.
I understand that he is as well. Look, you know, I don't have any statistics or studies that show, you know, thinner candidates. You know, I happen to be a very tall guy with some bone structure, so to speak. So I have to always constantly work at it. Blame my father, blame genetics, so to speak.
It is tough. Everyone struggles with it, I'm sure. And I wish you luck in your continued weight loss efforts, also in getting a budget deal, which certainly is more important possibly for, at the very least, not for your health, but for the health of the state all over the place, all over the state of New York. So thanks very much for coming in, and I appreciated it. Senator Craig Johnson from Nassau County, Long Island. Bye-bye.
Thank you.